let's talk about adrenals. And I'm sorry, this is a crappy angle, but the way that my kitchen is set up, it's kind of the only thing that I can do. But let's talk about our adrenals and how to support them. And I want to give you an adrenal cocktail. Now, it's not a cocktail in the sense that it has alcohol in it. Definitely doesn't. That would not be good for your adrenals or for your gut. And I'm starting out with my hair down because people were like, oh my gosh, your hair is so long. It is long. It has not been this long in forever. Forgive me how it looks on the top because I've had it in a ponytail, and that's where it's going back, into a ponytail. Okay, I know if I showed up on here on time or not looking like a hot mess express that you people wouldn't recognize me. So I'm keeping it up. Keeping up appearances. Okay. So, something really simple to make. I don't have one ingredient, but it's optional anyway. So I'll tell you what I'm going to substitute. But, this can make a big difference if you're feeling down, tired, like you slept all night, but you wake up and you're like no energy, which is most of us, right? That's the common thing that I hear from a lot of people. They're like, I just have no energy. I sleep okay, but I have no energy. Or I wake up, I kind of have a little bit of energy, and then as the day goes on, I just get really tired. I'm reaching for the caffeine. I'm trying to take a nap, all those things. And that absolutely has to do with how your adrenal glands are functioning. And let me tell you exactly what's in it. Okay, so orange juice, and I actually used oranges. I actually juiced them myself, but these were horrible oranges. So a little tip is that you want to roll it. You can kind of guess what I'm doing here. You want to roll it so that the juice comes out a little bit easier. Than I just cut it. I don't have a juicer either, and I just sort of squeezed what pitiful amount of juice came out of these. They were really kind of awful. Okay, so about a half a cup. And the reason that you're adding this is for vitamin C. And we'll talk about why we want vitamin C and all of that sort of thing. So if you've ever heard me talk, you know that I don't normally like for you to start your day with a bunch of carbohydrates. I want you to start your day with protein, like for breakfast. But you can do this after breakfast. You could do this kind of mid-afternoon, maybe after lunch, as a way to support your adrenals. So I definitely don't want you to do this and this be the only thing that you drink, because it will spike your blood sugar, and that's a whole other set of problems. So about a half a cup of fresh squeezed orange juice, a quarter to a half a teaspoon of Celtic salt. And while I had an opportunity, I was gonna tell you about a few little swaps that you should probably make. This is French Celtic salt, and it is fine ground. There is Celtic salt that is more coarse. I do like that as well. I also use flake salt sometimes, but this is kind of a gray looking Celtic salt. It is not pink Himalayan sea salt. If you have this, I want you to throw it away, because most of it does not come from the Himalayas. It actually comes from China, and it has been shown through multiple testing that this contains a lot of heavy metals. Now, if you've been using this forever and you want to see if you have a bunch of heavy metals in your body, then come and see me and we'll do a hair tissue mineral analysis, because we can see if you have heavy metals or not. Okay, but this goes in the trash. We're substituting it for Celtic salt. It comes, this one's fine ground. So a quarter to a half. And I am going to use just a quarter for me. Okay, a quarter. And then we're gonna do about a half of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. And if you didn't know, cream of tartar is a really tart, powdery substance, but it is potassium. So we're adding potassium to support our adrenals. So here we go. And then the optional thing that we could add to this is coconut water, because coconut water has other minerals in it, but I don't have any. And so what I'm going to do is I do have my filtered water. So I'm going to add just a little bit of filtered water so I can mix this up. and it's not quite like, you know, with all that cream of tartar in there. Okay. So, this little mix, like super simple, but really powerful. And, you know, I would caution you against using, like prepared orange juice, because they're all from concentrate, and they all, you know, squeeze, get their juice, and then they, concentrate it down, and then they add the water back. It is not the same thing as fresh squeezed, although it might be better than what I have right here, because these oranges are not hitting on much. And then you're going to drink this down. You can do it, like I said, I would say after breakfast. Depends on how early you do breakfast. Depends on how you feel when you wake up. But you could do it after breakfast. You could do it after lunch. If you tend to have that afternoon slump, this will actually help. It's not going to provide you energy. Like, it's not going to be like a big energy boost. But what it is going to do is it's going to support your adrenals, and over time, they're going to be able to handle the stress of the day better, and you're going to have better cortisol output. You know, your adrenal glands are those little tiny things that sit on top of your kidneys, and they're your body's stress managers. And so we oftentimes don't think, we think about stress as a negative thing, and we think about cortisol as a negative thing, but it's not. Stress definitely can be beneficial to the body, because it actually causes our body to release some hormones and to actually change some of the enzymes in the body. So it's actually protective in small amounts for a short period of time, but not like we have stress. I mean, we have stress that is going on, that we haven't had a day that hasn't been stressful in like since 1986. You know what I mean? Like, it's just constant everyday stress. Some of it has to do with social media. You know, we're constantly getting bombarded with those, you know, distractions and attention grabbers and all that kind of stuff. Or we have these, you know, in our mind, we're thinking about things that really we either have no control over, or that we should just take care of and get it out of our mind so it's not a stressful thing. We have physical stress, and that's where a lot of ours comes in. You know, we have these leaky guts that are leaking inflammatory products. We have so much trash in our food that it is a stress to our bodies. So that's the stress that I'm talking about. And over time, I know we've talked about this kind of recently as well, but over time, you know, that stress becomes less adaptive, meaning that it's not just short and actually beneficial for you. It is over a long period of time, and it's detrimental to you because it's causing a lot of other things to go on in the body. So when we talk about our adrenal glands, we automatically think about cortisol, which is great. And we automatically think about it in a negative light. Like I said, I don't want us to think about that, because cortisol is actually our emergency hormone. And what we're finding is that a lot of people, instead of having those cortisol surges, you know, that we're having problems, we can't lose belly weight, you know, that kind of stuff. Some people will get hot flashes with that, especially if you're my age. You can get feelings of anxiety. You can get a little chest pain. That doesn't necessarily mean it's cardiac pain, but it could be like an anxiety feeling. You can have trouble sleeping. You can have brain fog. You can have trouble concentrating. Like, that could be, you know, that can all be coming from cortisol. But, you know, cortisol is our keep us alive hormone as well. And so when you think about cortisol, I don't want you to think just negative all the time. So, cortisol is, when it's constantly released, you know, there's a finite amount of building blocks that we take in a day to actually build our cortisol. And some of the things that we're replenishing here, which is sodium, potassium, and vitamin C, are those things that are the building blocks for cortisol. So if you find yourself in that chronic stress situation, and you're feeling like, you know, I feel like maybe I'm using up all of my cortisol because I've been in this fight or flight for so long, that I need to support my cortisol. So this is how you're going to do it. So the orange juice is there for vitamin C, and your adrenal glands actually use up more vitamin C than almost any other tissue in the body. They burn through it like crazy when you're stressed. And vitamin C is one of those water soluble vitamins, so it doesn't do a whole lot of good to take like a ton of it just once a day, because your body's not going to store it anywhere. It's going to use what it can use right then, and then, you know, replenish some stores, and then you're going to pee out the rest. So if you're supplementing vitamin C, I always recommend that you supplement it smaller doses over multiple doses during the day. Because that's actually gonna support your adrenals better. It's also gonna support your immune system better than if you're doing it in just like, you know, a 5,000 milligram dose once a day. You're not gonna absorb most of that. You're not gonna hang on to any of that. You're gonna pee the extra out. So instead, do 500 milligrams, you know, multiple times throughout the day. All right. And that's also why I recommend that if you're really feeling like your adrenals are kind of worn out and you don't have the energy, you're tired all the time, or you have that brain fog all the time, then certainly I would recommend that you drink this once, you know, after breakfast, and then once after lunch, and that will give you that support and that divided doses of vitamin C. The sea salt gives you sodium, and it also gives you trace minerals. So in Celtic sea salt, there's 91 trace minerals. And we're talking about things like manganese, molybdenum, boron, cadmium, you know, like the really small amounts of minerals that we don't hear about a lot, but are vital. We might not need a whole lot of it in our body, but each one of those has a vital function. And so, you know, with our nutrition being the way that it is, with our gut health being the way that it is because of our nutrition, you know, we're not absorbing a lot of food. And as we're aging, just us in general, like if you're my age, then, you know, your gastric acid is less. And so you're not absorbing what you're eating anyway, even if you're eating. So for those people who are like, I'm doing everything right and I'm still stuck, you know, it's because you might not be supporting your gut enough. That you might need to actually do some dedicated gut healing and some dedicated work that actually gets your rhythm, your meal rhythm back, and actually supports your digestion and your absorption. But one of the things that we find is that most of us are deficient in gastric acid. Gastric acid is also the starter gun for pancreatic enzymes and for bile flow, which is not only important for us absorbing our macronutrients like our fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, but also it helps with our detox capacity. You know, we need to be able to detox the toxins, the trash in our diets, you know, the hormones and neurotransmitters, the inflammatory products. Like, we need to be able to detox those. And bile is one of those really important ones. So you can see how when we start talking about one thing, like here we're talking about adrenals, but now we have to back it up to the gut, because that's foundational for when we're talking about health in general. And I say that all the time, but I like to give you, you know, prime examples of where we see that and exactly what we're talking about. So it's going to give you those trace minerals. Stress makes you waste sodium. This is also one of the things that I do when I do lab reviews for people. I'll see on your CMP. I can tell, you know, that you have some adrenal issues going on if your sodium and your potassium are off a little bit. I can also definitely see this in a hair tissue mineral analysis. Again, if you are, you know, having blood sugar balancing, detox issues, energy issues, metabolism issues, thyroid issues, we really need to take a look at your minerals. And the best way to do that is by looking at how they're being stored in the hair. That is also why, you know, so we're adding the sodium from the Celtic salt, and that is why that people with low adrenal reserves often crave salty things. Some people will think that it is like you're craving chips, and they're thinking that, oh, I like the crunch. But no, actually what you're craving is the salt. And so if you're craving a lot of salt, that might mean that that your adrenal glands really definitely need some support. And then the cream of tartar sounds fancy, but it's basically just a source of of potassium, which balances out the sodium, because again, when we're talking about minerals, we're not talking about, we're looking at what's the absolute value in your body. But more importantly, we're looking at how sodium interacts with magnesium. How does sodium interact with potassium? Whether your minerals are intracellular or extracellular. There's a whole lot that goes into that hair tissue mineral analysis, which is why it gives us so much great information. It's not just, am I deficient in magnesium? It tells us, how is my thyroid functioning and how is my magnesium related to my calcium. That's the kind of in-depth stuff that we're getting. But cream of tartar is a source of potassium, balances out that sodium, and it actually helps you to make energy. So what you're doing is you're actually giving your body the nutrient building blocks. This is like Legos, okay? The nutrient building blocks to produce more cortisol, which is what your body is screaming for. If you are in that wired but tired feeling, that's a common complaint that people have. They're like, gosh, I drug myself through the day all day long, and then when I go to lay down in bed, I am boom, wide awake, or it could be that you have that kind of just that anxious kind of feeling in the pit of your stomach, but you have no energy whatsoever, or you have that brain fog that just will not let up. Those are all things that are related to your adrenals. So mid-morning around 10 o'clock. Now, if you get up really early, you can certainly eat it or drink it earlier than that. And then mid-afternoon, like 2 to 3 o'clock. But again, I don't want you, I believe so heavily in just 3 meals a day and having at least 4 hours in between meals for your gut health, that I just I think my better recommendation for you is right after breakfast and then right after lunch. And it's kind of like that you're putting fuel in the tank so that your body can actually make that energy again. And, just remember that this is for supporting our adrenals so that they can build cortisol. This is not for the person that is in that, fight or flight and you're having cortisol surges all day long. But there's a fine line between you actually using up your cortisol and surging your cortisol all day long to where, boom, now you're deficient. Now your adrenals are fatigued and you're not getting the building blocks so that you can actually produce that life-saving hormone that we need. There's a lot of other things that we need to do, which is deal with stress, deal with inflammation, heal our gut, have some rhythm to what we're doing, honor our circadian rhythms, honor our seasonal rhythms. If you're still a menstruating woman, honor your monthly rhythms, honor where we are in our life cycle. Like, there's so many other things that we need to do that will ultimately lead to a better balance in our cortisol level. That happens over time. But this is something, if you're struggling with fatigue and brain fog and just dragging yourself through the day, I want you to make this. So a half a cup of fresh squeezed orange juice for vitamin C, a quarter to a half a teaspoon of Celtic salt, not Himalayan sea salt, Celtic salt for the sodium. And I want you to add a quarter to a half of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. You can also add coconut water for some additional minerals, but I just added filtered water. So there you go. I hope that helps.